Hello, and welcome back to Wild Honesty. In this episode, it's just something that I have been sitting on for a while, remembering that this podcast is all about the messy middle. This one is about the transition between being in the identity and the life that you know how to succeed in, and transitioning into a life that you can feel calling you, but you're not really sure how that is to be built yet. It's scary when you can't see how it's all going to work out. In this episode, I'm just hoping to share with you a little bit about where I've been standing lately, sitting, laying between those two different identities. And hopefully somewhere in that you will maybe hear yourself, and it will help you become a little more unfiltered about the things you want to tell those around you or yourself, help you come a little bit more alive, and help you see yourself a bit more clearly. I would say I've probably been trying to record this episode in my head for a few weeks. I have these thoughts, these conflicting bits of information in my brain, and I think I should talk about this, or where is this leading to, or how do I make it a perfect conversation? And again, I've had to remind myself that that's not what this website, case in point, this podcast is all about. I'm, again, like the introduction episode, I'm sitting here, I have a child inside who is asleep because she's off school sick. I have not done my hair or my makeup, and I'm sitting in my tattooing caravan just before I'm about to take her to the doctor to get this done. But it's a rainy day, I've got the time, and I want to share this with you. I've been sitting in this strange space, and I think we're always in that space, but there's these big moments throughout our lives where we feel it a bit stronger, because our identity is forever shifting. Who we are is forever shifting and evolving and changing. But there is bigger moments where it really feels like you can no longer live inside the life that you once created. Again, we can talk astrology, human design, the transits, the universe, any of that. But at the end of the day, it's what it's making you feel. And it's so loud for me. But there is real responsibilities, and everyone talks about, okay, just manifest this and manifest that, and go after what you want. Yes, it can all be that easy sometimes. But there's also a certain amount of trust that you have to sit in this space and the noise that goes on mentally while you're working through that. Because I have definitely built a life around a version of me that was probably a lot more performing. It doesn't mean that it wasn't authentic. It was just very much a version of me from being a child, how I grew up, that I have to work, I have to earn, I have to do in order to be lovable, worthy, you name it. And I think, again, we all know parts of these pieces of us exist, but sometimes they become so loud you can't ignore them. And really what I'm super curious about is how we all manage that. We all do it differently. It's why I love the conversations I get to have. It's why I hope that you hear part of yourself in me, or feel like reaching out to share that with me, because there's some things that people find so easy. They sit there, they don't compare themselves to others, while a person over here is doing that, even though they can see themselves doing it, and it becomes really hard. Me speaking, and some of the things I'm going to talk into today are things I haven't ever spoken on, because I don't want the judgment. I don't want to upset anyone. But what I have actually realized, thanks to a psychologist and a friend, I actually never looked at the fact that I was fawning in certain areas of my life. When our nervous system is on alert, certain things happen. I've known where I can be in fight or flight. I see that so freely, but it's interesting, I never saw that I fawned. And that means I'm basically just giving in, I'm cowering. And even that feeling for me, as someone who is like, I will not, it feels like failure. It doesn't feel like strength, which is interesting because I don't actually want to be strong. I just want to feel at peace. But that fawning is what I'm doing because I'm trying to belong. and I'm trying to belong in places that I don't fit, and that is stopping me going from the identity that I've created into where I want to be. So if I can't show up and speak about this middle part and be okay with people judging that, having their opinions, how do I sit here and say the thing that I love the most and the thing that I feel is missing in this world is the fact that someone can say something and I can hear it just as an opinion, take it on, filter it, and go, you know what, like, thank you for that. Yeah, I'm going to take parts of that. No, I disagree with that, but I'm not going to judge you for that. And I think the world is really missing that. Yet I'm judging myself for my own beliefs and my own thoughts and my own understanding of who I am right now, and not giving myself permission to show up here today and share this with you, and then show up maybe in 6 months, maybe 3 weeks if I learn my lesson quickly, maybe 3 years, and go, you know what, that episode I recorded back there, holy, like, I don't know what I was thinking, or wow, that theme is still there, I haven't transitioned very quickly. So, in true Emily Waffle form, guess what I just want to continue on with saying is that if we cannot show up and be the person we want to see in the world and get through those biggest parts of ourselves that have been hurt, that have conditioned us to act a certain way, we're not going to move from the version that is feeling so uncomfortable now that we can't sit inside it, to this new uncomfortable that makes us feel more alive. And honestly, when I sit here speaking like this, I can feel the difference inside my body, as opposed to doing some of the things I still do in my life that I don't have the same passion for, even though I don't know what this conversation is going to achieve or bring, but it's doing something for me. And when I go to put this up and share it, there's still going to be that part of me that goes, uh-oh, is there acceptance there? But I'm sharing it anyway. And that could have been a podcast 2 years ago, and there probably is one on the A Road Less Doubtful branding of this, that wasn't ready to do that. Or the me before I started the podcast, or the me that somewhere in the middle forgot her voice and got really scared again because things happened around my business. People were saying things. You go through a marriage breakdown. You're well known in your town through your identity, but no one knows the true core of who you are. And it's very easy to want to hang your head when you walk around, even though you know things that got said are not truths. But everyone has their own truth, and you've got to be okay with that and trust that the people who want to know you, or the people that are your people or have the same values, will stick around. So with that said, let's dive into what I've been sitting with. Well, I'm not unhappy with my life. I can see some great things. I've had awesome moments. Even this morning with my daughter being unwell, I dropped my eldest one to school, and today was supposed to be Emily's productive, not in tattooing day, and I really enjoyed taking my daughter to the beach. I bought her a Psy for her sore throat. We sat there. We did a tiny little bit of meditation. We were only there for 10 minutes. She cuddled into me while we lay in the sun. And in that, I thought, holy, I have been craving more of these moments. These are the parts of me that I've been trying to move into, and yet I almost, I caught myself, but I almost was overriding that with, we can't go down and do that today because I have to send this email, record this, do this, clean the house. No, if I keep being that person, I can't see what this other side of me can bring. And just taking that time, I've said this before, I've come home, I've sent off all the emails that I've been too scared to send off in order to try and get a new project off the ground, or a growing project off the ground, hoping that I will be heard, right? My biggest fear, that I won't look stupid and that I'll belong. We will have a reoccurring theme here in this podcast, which is why I want to create this podcast. And I want to create spaces that other people feel heard, because it's what I have needed. For over 20 years, I have known who I am as a cosmetic tattooist. In a hands-on, I bring to the table a tangible thing and you leave with a result. I have a skill, I'm known for that skill, I know myself with that skill, I trust that skill, I can market that skill, and I've built a really successful business around it. It has supported my kids, it has supported me, I have supported a lot of women, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I still do. But I know how to build a business around that. I know who I am in that. But what I'm not 100% sure on yet is how I shift that into this is what I bring as me without the certificate. I know I can create XYZ for a person. I can create a feeling, and I know the life I want to be in. I want it to include more community, more travel, more time with my children, with my partner, and bringing in more of the things that just naturally light me up, because I truly don't believe in working until you are 65, what is going to be probably 80 for me, and then doing the things you love. Like, what if we flipped that? I have no problem being 70 and, let's say, packing bags at Woolworths, because I'm going to get to have conversations with people. I can offer my wisdom. But what if right now I get to go out and travel and accumulate my life and build something later? Because I don't think I'm going to not want to work, and I love talking to people. So I've just been getting curious about that flipped script lately. The thing that's been the catalyst for maybe my unnervedness, I don't know if that's actually a word, is that last year, I sold my house. And that came after a few years of sitting with that, growing my business in order to hold it, to pay out my ex-husband. And even that I've talked about, but not fully. You know, there's stories that go around that I took the house from my ex-husband, that he gave it to me, that these things are so hard, and no one is inside your life. No one knows. No one has no idea. Like, they don't know the flow. While I don't know anyone an explanation, what I do think it's really interesting is that, would people care if they knew that I lost my dad, I got an inheritance, the inheritance went into their house? That was a fantastic boost for my life. My ex-husband was excellent in keeping his word on, we would split everything 50-50. Neither of us are ever going to feel like it was great, because that is the hurt, that is life. But he didn't touch my inheritance. Now, while that's not your information to fully know, I don't care that you do, because my belief there is, I don't think it would make any difference for people to know that if they didn't want to hear that version of what truth is anyway. If they didn't want to get to ask him or me or both, they wanted to form that opinion because it makes them feel more comfortable. We all do it. I am not void of that. But that feeling or those thoughts can very much, for someone like me, if you have those thoughts, keep you stuck. So then I was like, well, if I sell the house, people think I'm not successful, that I can't, that I write all of those stories. So again, that was one of those hurdles back then. What I want to talk about right now, though, is that selling that house for me was giving me some breathing room. But that came with another side of, like, as heavy as this sounds, my dad died for this money. And that still, So something I'm really, really passionate about is exactly what I just said. Why do we work and work and work? And then he died before he was 50. And while I'm so grateful for what he has given me, I would take him back as my dad, getting to heal things. We were not super close, but things I've learned about me, things I've become self-aware of, like that, it's just life. I would take that. But that feels like a burden of sorts to me, to not waste that away. So there was also that in the back of my mind of, who would he have built his life? Like, what would he have built his life with that money? What would my mum have done? What would my brother have done? And then there's this Emily who does it a really different way, and becoming okay with her. So I sold that house to give me some breathing room, and I went into a rental. and I got my caravan sorted, which is this. I have next to no mortgage, and I wanted to give myself some space. But my old operating system is still hanging in there strong. And so once I used some of that money to build the things I thought that I am 80% sure will all pay off, that 20% of me is like, well, now you've lost your security again. So that whole pattern is still there really strong. And I think, wow, why did you leave the rental? You've put all of this money now into a house and you don't have a buffer. But if I don't clear that I've got myself and that I have security in myself and that I can trust myself, even though that's not there, then I'm going to do it again. And so I'm sitting there again. You know, I thought making that big external move would shift so many things, that it would create this immediate internal relief of pressure. But letting go of something and thinking that's going to happen is not necessarily how it plays out. So while some days I can sit there and get really down on the fact that I did that and that the house could be worth XYZ more now, and thank you again, perimenopause, hormones, life, the day after I can sit there and go, no, Emily, you backed yourself. This is what you should have done. It's not meaningless, but it has also shown you where you're gripping things really tightly, where you haven't cleared certain shadows or things that you still need to work on within yourself. So it's not meaningless, but again, we're still in that middle bit. We're still trying to play with the identity. Like one day, even now, inside the caravan, I own the caravan. It's my workspace. I love one-on-one conversations that I've created back with my clients. It's not as fast-paced. There's not people coming and going all the time like I had staff, which was originally how I loved working. The flip of that is there's less income. Sometimes the mobile salon feels freer, and I've taken it to the 4x4 Expo and it's started building this new identity. But again, on the other side, some days I can't mow the lawn, or I have to move it, or it doesn't feel as professional, or it's like there's always competing evidence for whichever narrative you want to pay attention to. I had to take time off to take this caravan down to the expo, not knowing why or what was going to come out of it, but simply the fact that I'd been talking about doing this for probably 5 years. And again, back then I didn't know how or what steps were going to evolve or how it was going to evolve, but this felt like the next step for it to evolve. But again, I could have chosen to stay and earn the income tattooing for those 4 days, not spend the money traveling down there. But I also caught myself going, Emily, this is the life you've been asking for. So you need to try it on. And when I tried it on, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed getting to travel with my partner. I enjoyed getting to learn how to tow the caravan. I got frustrated, but I loved being able to reverse the caravan, see new places. It gave me a sense of something that then I could hold on to build the next part of it. When I've come back in and had conversations in my caravan, everyone's asking me, like, how was it? And my answer is, I really enjoyed seeing that version of me, because I was actually just inside the visions I've always had without even realizing it in moments. Having, you know, the first episode I put up from down there with Tom and Michelle, random people walking past you, making a comment resulted in a podcast episode and a conversation that I enjoyed, and it lit something up in me, and I believe it helped them too. And I'm inside the thing I said I wanted to do without the mental noise saying, you can't do it, you don't know the systems, you don't know how to edit, etc., etc., etc. This is the part I want you to pay attention to within yourself. But what's been the biggest thing at play is this version of me can come out very, very easily if I didn't have responsibilities. And we all have responsibilities. And again, when I talk to people, well, how am I supposed to do it when I have blah, blah, blah? If there's someone out there who can tell me how we just, well, please, I'm not there yet. I'm not a manifesting pro. Love Joe Dispenza. Maybe I need to look into it more. Maybe I need to do some more epigenetic, work and rewire some patterns. All of that's helpful. But still, while you're doing that, you still have to navigate this transition. And a big one for me is this co-parenting. It's been receiving and co-parenting, and then navigating a long-distance relationship. And all parts are such big parts of who I am. So the values and the identity of who I am as a partner, they haven't really shifted. As a mother, they haven't really shifted. But as a co-parent, I can't be the mother I fully want to be. And that can get really hard, and I'm sure a few of you listening can relate to that. So if I'm trying to create this life, and I have a partner who is 4 hours away, and I'm trying to relieve nervous system pressure, but I want him close, and I want hugs, and I want to trust that he'll still be there, and he's got a good job that, you know, it's just a pay every week. So to me that feels easy. For him, he's not inside a job that he actually loves, but he's quite good at it. It pays well, it's secure. And I'm trying to walk away from this version of me that needs security, but I'm consistently being reflected to by my partner, hey, I've got the security and I can support you. Now, even when he says that, I'm like, I don't rely on anyone, because if I do and it goes away, I lose everything I've built. And herein lies the next part of the work. Now that's just one piece of the puzzle. Cool, what could that look like? Do I really want to step away from tattooing a little bit more? I don't. Do I want to adjust the way I work in that model? Yeah, because I still love it and I'm still good at it and I still love the conversations. Okay, but if he can support me, I could maybe go up to Rockhampton a little more, but that requires driving. That requires money for fuel. That requires time. 4 hours each way is a day's work. So logic. And then what do the kids think? What if they have sport on? What if they need me when I'm up there? Well, then I've given up work for. This is the dialogue that goes round and round. Sorry that you get to hear my brain, but the point is, it doesn't really matter how good you are at co-parenting with somebody else when they are now trying to build a life for them selfishly and makes sense. And you don't feel like you're in the place for you to build your life, but your kids are set up. The hardest part in that is, normally when you parent, the husband and the wife, or the two partners, or the two parents, or whatever that looks like, make a decision, and the kids aren't making that choice. Is that right or wrong? I don't know the answer on that either, but I remember as a kid, my parents made a decision, we went. Or my mum would make a decision when she was a single mum because she wasn't co-parenting, and I just had to follow. Did I kick and scream? Yes. Did I hate it sometimes? Yes, but I did it, and I'm okay. Or I'm unlearning patterns, and that is life. But now, I can see where I feel like I want my kids to travel more, and I want them to not be sitting around and absorbing the heaviness of the world that I'm feeling. Now that could just be something that is mine. I don't want to put that on my children, but it's also part of the new, I say new me, that sounds ridiculous. This feeling that just keeps coming and getting louder, this pull to slow down, this world is busy, this world is critical, it is, but it doesn't have critical thinking skills. It is quite mean, and I just don't think it's working, quite frankly. And I want them to see a different way so they can feel it, because what I do know and what I have seen with my clients and myself, you don't know what you don't know until you can feel it. So when I've traveled, the version of me that doesn't have an identity tied to anything else, mum, partner, business, whatever, gets to feel that, which brings things alive. And I think that's super important. But if you have another co-parent who thinks completely differently, their values are just as important to them, but trying to have that conversation is very hard. So then your children don't have two people figuring that out because they both have really strong beliefs. So again, how do we build this life where for me, that I can live me, because I get one, without the labels of I'm selfish for doing this, and also show my children what I believe is important to show them, that it is about joy, that it is about aliveness, that we're not just here to stop being who we are when we become parents, or to just go about our day in something that we don't love anymore. I don't want them to see that. I don't want that to be all there is. Doesn't mean there's not value on the other side, but for me, because those values are strong, these are the things we instill in our children. And if you can't do it, it becomes frustrating. So I guess the challenges that I'm just speaking into are, how do we start to get more of that inside the framework that's been created from previous versions of us that no longer fit? And that's actually really not easy at all. I guess it just feels like every possibility and every scenario has a version of me standing beside it, accusing me of certain different things. Selfishness, being irresponsible. If I stay and I do things like I've always done, I suppress myself. But then there's resentments. I'm not as happy as a mum, so my nervous system can't hold as much for them. So then we flip it back, and if I look after me, I can hold more for my children. Some days I think, just go back into a salon, build what you already know. There's your security, that's easy. The other side of me goes, you know that that's not true. But the security piece, to be a good mum, steps in, or to provide, or to not have to receive from the partner who says he wants to help. So it's unlearning and relearning. I just think maybe the work isn't finding a space where nobody is disappointed. It's just maybe learning to distinguish selfishness from self-abandonment and responsibility from fear. So I guess a few learnings from me after you've had that waffle, and maybe I should have led with this in case you didn't want to get through 31 minutes of me just talking about all of that. Freedom is not one dramatic decision. Like selling my house didn't automatically make me feel free. You may not get one choice that becomes a clear escape. Sometimes maybe you will. But sometimes it'll come through a series of experiments that allow you to become more and more of that next version inside where you're already at. Self-trust doesn't come before the next step, and I've said this one a lot of times, and you would think I'd have it down pat by now. But every time showing up here before I think I have something really clever to share with you builds the self-trust for me to do it again and again. If I didn't take the first stage speech, the 4x4 Expo, I wouldn't have done the next one. I wouldn't have had feedback. The podcast maybe wouldn't be where it's at. And I just wouldn't have had that understanding of myself that I enjoy delivering it. And if nothing else, we're here to figure out what it is we love doing and unlearn things that we've carried from past lives in. So, what a win. Feeling alive is always information, but maybe it's not always an instruction. That's probably a hard one for me because I feel that feeling and I'm like, let's go. Generator energy, let's do the thing, let's follow the joy. And that's not correct. But if you can feel it, then you can start putting the pieces of the puzzle together, because it's just an understanding you have within yourself that I want more of that in my life. Sometimes where we judge others as well is a really, really good place to look at what we're missing out on. Where we're jealous is something we're missing. So actually use it as information. And when you're inside something that makes you feel alive, even if it's fleeting, what is it? Pay attention to it, write it down, and add it to that new version of you. Something I don't love, but responsibility and aliveness just needs to be built a little bit more together. And structure and systems that I don't love creates more space. So if we can find ways to do that and give ourselves those moments and then be grateful for those small windows, like I mentioned, being down the beach this morning, my system is taking Fridays off to do stuff like this. And if I hadn't taken it off, then my daughter would have been home sick on her own. I wouldn't have been able to take her to the doctor. I wouldn't be able to take her down the beach, and I wouldn't have got this stuff done. So that has actually created space, even if one of my versions of my thoughts this morning was like, there goes my freedom. No, I'm really grateful that I've created a business that has allowed that. And that reframe is everything. And just creating more of that as we go along and being okay with the building blocks of doing that. And I guess that leads into the last thing. Your life doesn't have to be fully resolved for it to be meaningful work. If you can look back and go, look where I'm at compared to that. Look what I learnt. That's not wasted time. And hopefully for me, I can remember that just my willingness to show up without it being a finished version, without judging myself for not understanding more or being further ahead is me realizing that for myself. And again, giving you permission to do the same. So with all that said, if you're still listening to me in 2 years' time, amazing. If I'm still doing this in 2 years' time, amazing. I don't know what my life's going to look like in 2 years. I don't know if this caravan, these ideas, these pilot projects, the long-distance relationship, the co-parenting will become everything I've ever imagined. I don't know. Some days I don't even know what I fully imagine because I don't think I allow myself to dream big enough. Some days I still have days where I think, well, I'll just sell everything, take the cash and run and let's see what happens. That sounds like a pretty good experiment to me, and maybe I will. Who knows? Then I have other days where I want to go back into a salon, build again, create security, make everything look legitimate. Then there are moments where I'm sitting across from another human, a stranger, a friend, and I realize what I love is just understanding other humans, wanting more connection in this world and hoping that I'm doing my little part to understand myself, others, and allowing them to do the same. So I'm not telling you to quit your job. I'm not telling you to burn it all down and run. I'm telling you I understand if you have that feeling, and I have that conversation a lot, so you are not alone. I'm really inspired by people who have burnt it all down and watching where they've gone, so thank you for those conversations that I've had in the salon many a time. But what part of you wants to come alive that you keep dismissing because you can't see how she comes out, because you can't see the whole way forward yet? That's wild honesty. All right, guys, off to take the daughter to the doctor. Have a great day. Bye.